What's going on, guys? My name is Fernando Chavira, the third. I'm just kidding. I'm not a third. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm tired of seeing us lose. I'm tired of seeing us lose as people. I'm tired of us not realizing how capable we are. I'm going to give you guys a little backstory. It's been 5 years now since I've been in business for myself. And I have had to learn more about myself than anything else in order to have growth and success in what I do. I have had to read more. I have had to study more. I have had to be a lot more vulnerable. I've had to do more inner work on myself to get to where I am today, to be able to have the business growth that I've had. Now, it didn't come easy, and this wasn't always something that I was doing. A couple of years ago, I found myself making the most money that I ever made. I was in a career field that I went to school for. I was using that degree in order to sustain myself with that career that I had. And ultimately, after some time, I've acquired materialistic stuff, I've traveled, I found myself really having everything worldly that I could have, and I just felt empty inside. I was making the most money that I was ever making. I was dating somebody, and I had the house, I had cars, I had toys, I traveled, and I, for some reason, still found myself empty inside. And no matter how much I worked to acquire more things, at the end of everything that I acquired, once I had it, that little like substance was gone. The excitement of acquiring this particular thing was a lot more fulfilling than the actual product itself. Experience, materialistic, girl, whatever it is, right? I also, around this time frame, ended up deciding to separate myself from the individual that I was dating. Ultimately, I just didn't think we were on the same level, and I decided to pull the plug on that. I was also consuming alcohol around this time, and I found myself at a crossroads of what is my entire existence? What is the thing that I'm supposed to be doing? A guy like myself that has the career, the girlfriend, the cars, the traveling, all this stuff, the house, I should be happy. I should, right? Like, the entire thing that I was sold, to go to school, get a degree, get a career, get a girl, get the house, do all this. And I found myself at a dead end. I decided to separate from this person around the same time that I also decided to quit this career. And I found myself spiraling out of control pretty fast. This is around the time where I was still abusing alcohol pretty heavily. Now, I'll give you a backstory with my relationship with alcohol. I think it's pretty standard, not just in the Hispanic community, but in a Western society, where there is a lot of life based around alcohol. We celebrate, we drowned ourselves. It seems like everything that I was doing, at least for me in my experience, revolved around alcohol. Bad day, alcohol. Good day, let's celebrate. Get a drink. Yard work, let's get a drink. Vacation, whatever. It was just this overconsumption. And I'll be honest with you, I hit a point in my life where I ended up in some legal trouble a couple years ago, and I still kept consuming. But right around this time when I was, grieving with the breakup, because ultimately I tried to pursue this person back and it just didn't work out. And so I grieved after the whole thing went down. I also, around this time, decided that it was probably best for me to quit this career. I was bringing the morale down in that environment because I was no longer happy and satisfied with what I was doing. And for some reason, there was no amount of money that would ultimately scratch that itch for me. And so I decided to change scenery. And so part of this change, like I said, was the quitting the career, we received the bonus around March. And so I was already cutting up and acting it up around October when the breakup happened. So I was in a spot where I wasn't happy in the breakup, and I was grieving that thing because I didn't realize that I was going to grieve after this person left my life. And so I was going with the grieving process. I was miserable at this career because I could not see myself being in this control room forever. So I had this like desire for something else. I didn't know what it was. And so I was just drowning myself in alcohol instead of dealing with the reality of what I was dealing with. And so because I've already had legal trouble with it, alcohol also played a role, not just in my previous relationship, but also in my career, also in my personal life and just everything around me. And so after quitting the career, going through the breakup, and alcohol being the last thing that I held on to, shortly after all the season had changed, around this time as well, I decided that I was going to go ahead and hang alcohol up. Like I said, I've already had legal trouble with it. I said some really hurtful things, not just to the person I was dating at the time, but also my friends. And I was being really ugly towards people around me. I got tired of waking up and having this regret. Where's my truck? How much money did I spend? Kind of going through that season. And so, because I felt like everything around me was spiraling downhill, I said, hey, at this point, what do I have to lose? Let's just figure something out. Now, I didn't not have a backup plan. I was there for 6 years in that career. And for the last 2 years that I was there, I went ahead and I ended up getting my real estate license to do residential real estate. And so I had already had one foot in that business. And so my plan was to just ruffle some feathers, jump into a complete change of scenery, and devote myself to this real estate career. And that was 3 years ago. So I've now been a real estate agent for a total of 5 years. 2, I was still at the plant, and I was pretty much an undercover agent where I didn't have the confidence and the experience to really go out there and market myself and ask for business and take business, right? Demand business. And so I spent a lot of time just kind of learning and kind of going with the flow of this business. But when things got serious for me, I realized that I was going to fail at this business. And everything that I had sacrificed getting out of this relationship, right? Because it felt like something was off. And for the record, that was a very amazing person. I just don't think it was my person. So I don't want to say this, and I know it's common that relationships end and there is a kind of like an anger or what happened and all this, and that wasn't the case here. We had some differences, and I'll be honest with you, at least from my perspective, there's a lot of things I could have handled differently. And so what I didn't realize what was going to happen is in the season to come after this ruffling of my life, I was going to go down a very pivotal time for me. Like I said, was realizing that the business was going to fail because of me. I also realized that the business was going to be successful if I decided it was going to be successful, and I did the things that the business required in order for it to be successful. I didn't realize what I was walking into and how much this next season was going to demand of me to change. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Some of the things that we're going to cover right here is going to be, now more than ever, is a little bit of faith. I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that you shouldn't do certain things. I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys how you should act, because from what I'm understanding in this book, it says that I need to have patience with people. I need to help guide the disheartened. And I also need to not fight evil with evil or make sure that other people don't do evil. But all this is new to me. But I've seen a huge impact in my life picking up this Bible and just studying a little bit of the Word. There's a lot of wisdom in here. And I'm simply picking it up because of the wisdom that I see in here. And I'm not one of those individuals that is fully 100% devoted to faith. Right now, this is something that I'm entertaining. And I can honestly tell you this. I have not been down this road with faith long enough to really determine if this road is for me or not. what I can say up until this point is that I have not found any level of fulfillment or any level of peace, internal peace. This is all internal now. Everything now that's happening with this podcast and what's happening with this first episode and everything that I'm doing now in my life is to find a level of internal fulfillment that I never, ever have experienced, ever, on any other road that I walked. And so for me, this is very important for me. And now I'm not perfect. There still are some things that I do wrong, and I have some bad habits that I haven't reached that script in the Bible that says whether I should drop this habit or not. And honestly, I haven't hit a point where this habit is creating the issues that alcohol created for me in my life. And so as of right now, we are perfectly okay with where we're at in this season, and we're growing. Now, the next thing, books. I'm going to be honest with you guys. A lot of these books right here, I've read about half of them halfway through. I have a problem with finishing them. And so I've made it a goal of mine to pick up some of these books. And it's taking me a lot longer because I haven't read a lot up until maybe the last 3 years or so. And so books for me have played a very, very huge part in the success that I have had going into this new season and becoming the new person that I am becoming. So we're going to cover a little bit of the stuff that I see in these books. Right now, this is a very good book right here. The next thing, I use a journal. When I was working at the chemical plant prior to becoming a full-time real estate agent, we would do something that was called the e-log. And what this e-log was literally that. It was an electric log. I think that's what the E stood for, e-log, because it was on the computer. And we would log what we did for the day. And what would happen is, if used properly, sometimes didn't use it myself, what would happen is the individual that was coming and making relief after you would have a general idea of what was done in that area, so they knew what they were walking into. And so I ended up picking this up, all this stuff. I picked all this stuff up when I decided that I was going to try to understand myself and also understand how to break the alcohol habit that I had. All this started from that experience. The combination of going through a career change to try to pursue something more purpose-driven, also grieving the relationship because I acted on it, and then I shortly realized that kind of missed the person and realized that life without them, shortly after that, it like ruffled. And so for me, I didn't grieve till after. I think women grieve during. And so I also found myself consuming a lot of alcohol, and I wanted to stop that habit. And so what ended up happening for me is I started to look at some of my behaviors. I started to look at the common denominator amongst my relationships. None of the last 3 or 4 people that I dated knew each other. They didn't date each other. And still, if you hear the little footsteps, it's because I have this guy right here. This guy is my dog. And this is Torque. See Torque? You see? And so he's walking around. So if you hear somebody fart, it may or may not be him. And so I started looking at the results that I kept having, and I kept wondering, why is it that I keep having these same results? I had 3 or 4 previous relationships, and they ended the same way, and the common denominator was Fernando. That was me. And so why is it that this thing keeps repeating? I have to be doing something wrong because I have different individuals here with the same outcome. And so this drove me down a path of reading. This drove me down a path of some self-development. This drove me down a path of accountability. This drove me down a path of looking myself in the mirror and ultimately being really disgusted with myself. I was spending money recklessly because I was drinking and I was avoiding a lot of my responsibilities and some of the things that I was dealing with. I didn't know how to process a lot of the emotions and the things that I was going through, and so I found it easier to run. And so I was tired of running. It seemed that the more I ran, the louder the noise and the bigger the issues grew. And so I decided to try something different that I never tried. I decided to dig inward. And so I knew that I wanted to change my drinking habit because of the results that I was getting in my life through, like I said, the previous legal trouble and just making an ass out of myself, spending money, hurting people, doing all these things, being reckless. And so I started to work that backwards. How do I break a habit? And why is it that I keep having these issues with this drinking problem? And so this journal here goes back to October 2022, I believe is what it is. Yeah, it was October 22. And so how I used this journal for my benefit was this. I used this journal for my benefit to take a log of how my day went. I just started studying myself. I started writing down what some of my moods were. I started writing down the details of the day that led up to this mood. I started writing down where my headspace was at. What is the thing that's stressing me out right now? What is the situation that's causing me to have the emotions associated with that? What false realities am I creating in my head? What problems am I creating for myself because I'm in my head? And so ultimately what I started to understand through this gathering of information, very scientific method style. Hypothesis, you do an experiment, and then I don't know, forget how it was, but you change some of the things you're testing and see if you get a different result, and you kind of use this whole thing, right? And so I started to kind of understand, okay, when I have sad days, it seems to be that I have this particular common thing across the board. When I have good days, it seems that all these things are kind of falling into place. And so then I started to say, okay, well, if we're able to point out the things that dictate the day we're going to have, let's focus on doing more of the good things. How do we have better days? How do we work on being in a better mood? How do we work on changing a habit? And so I started to document and kind of explore what my obsession with alcohol was. And I kept telling myself this, I kept telling myself this. I come from a line of drinkers. It's just what we do. This is who I am. It's all right. You only live once, YOLO. And I did that for so long, that I didn't realize that I was going to have to tell myself a new story to be able to quit the habit that I had, because it was no longer serving me. And I wanted to try to give this up just long enough to see if it was worth it. And that's what I'm doing right now. Everything that I'm doing right now with these books and faith and this journal is I'm figuring out if this road of honestly getting your shit together is worth it. And I can tell you this, it is for me. I'm having the most success in my business. I'm having the most success that I've ever had. I'm having the most success that I've ever had in my business, my personal life, my friendships, the relationships that I have in business, and also kind of in the dating scene and kind of doing that deal. There's a lot more good happening as I walk down this road, this path. And so for me, I'm going to continue to walk this, and I'm going to continue to maneuver life down this manner until I realized that this road, whether it was or not, was bullshit. Because I already knew the road that I was on with the drinking and the to be honest with you, the worldly temptations. I had the money, the cars, and all this other stuff, and I kept finding myself empty. And so I know this road long enough. I know that road long enough to know that every time I end up down that road, I know the results. I've experienced every result. Not every, but a lot of results. I don't want to walk down that road anymore long enough to experience some of the worst experiences down that road, because I've already kind of teetered the line a little bit. I've already pushed my limits a little bit in that manner. And I no longer want to go down that road because it's an empty road. And so this is where all this shifted. And so I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that I am perfect. By no means am I perfect. I am not selling that. I am simply a human being that is trying to figure out how to navigate life and become the best possible version of himself that feels right to me, and also feels more aligned with something more spiritually fulfilling, which to me it's faith. I don't really believe in organized religion. I really don't understand the response that comes from the organized religion conversation, and it seems to me like your value is based on what religion you are. And so I haven't really dug too far into that. This is all new to me. And again, I don't want to sit here and try to tell you what you should do. I'm just simply sharing my experience with the things that have been more beneficial in my life. And so I've started to do this because of the fact that I realized that there was a common denominator in a lot of the problems that I did have. And so I wanted to stop putting blame on other external things and figure out and see what I can do. Because it was always somebody else's fault, or the circumstances, or all these things. And I got tired of doing that. And so since getting a little half-ass grip of myself and moving more in this, I've had way better results. And so I'm going to keep going down this road. But I also sense a little level of hopelessness around my world and the area that I'm in. I also see, like you, a lot of what's going on social media. And I think that there is a much needed breath of fresh air amongst humans. I think we've gone too far with social media, and I think we've gone too far with not all of it. But it's very easy to get caught up in all the negative. It's very easy to get caught up in all the stuff that social media does a really good job at throwing in our faces. And to be honest with you, I've put this theory to the test. And controversy sells. And a lot of these applications are businesses. And so if we can keep people engaged and we can keep eyes on these apps and in these applications and fighting each other, then we have money. It creates, right? And so Torque, there's nothing worse than your dog like going ham on himself. Hey! And so I decided that I was going to take the sole responsibility of using my life and some of the things that I've been gifted with to spread a little bit of positivity, a little bit of joy, a little bit of hope, a little bit of maybe there's a chance. Because it's really easy to get caught up in all the negative. It's really easy to get caught up in everything going wrong. And not very many people are actively out spreading a little bit of joy, a little bit of that old school Southern hospitality, the good stuff that we kind of grew up on. I was born early 90s, and so to me, I'm 35. To me, I feel like we lost a little bit of it. And so I feel like I feel like we need a little bit more of a human element to life and not so much of a technology-driven type of lifestyle. And so what I want to share with you guys on this show is some of the things that I have learned to have better days in my life. I've been able to bridge the gaps between some goals, a new way to live, and kind of connect these dots. And all this is done through accountability. There is still some areas that I need to work on. I think it's always going to be a work in progress. But I'm going to break down things that I've learned in business, things that I've learned about communicating, things that I've learned about my thought process, challenging my truths, the things that I once thought to be true, challenging those things to make room for new perspectives, to make room for new, for an abundance mentality. For the longest time, I realized the story that I was telling myself with the alcohol problem that I had, or the abuse of alcohol problem that I had, or whatever, whether it was a problem or not. I realized something when I gave alcohol up. I realized how powerful the mind was. Why? Because prior, through the season of life that I went through that ultimately fueled my change, I wasn't aware of the things that I was doing. My change, and from what I've studied, it comes from a couple of things. There has to be some sort of pain. There needs to be a fuel source for change. And for me, the fuel source was the season of life that I found myself in. Acquiring all the things that I was supposed to make me happy and ultimately didn't. The career, the money, the traveling, the women, the cars, all these things. And so I went on a quest to find something more fulfilling. I kind of lost my train of thought there. But that's kind of what I went down this quest of finding something different. Am I actually able to tell myself a new story like I did to give up my drinking habit? It's been about a year and 8 or 9 months since I've picked up alcohol. Again, I do have other vices, so I'm not selling myself like I'm this perfect person. I am just hanging that one up for sure, because your boy was a loose cannon. I was one of those individuals that was very reckless. I didn't think about anybody else but myself. And if we were out having fun, we were going to paint the town. And so I realized that with the career that I have and everything that was going on around me, I needed to really get a grip on how loose I was. And so I decided to tell myself this new story. And with that, I was able to learn and understand how powerful the mind is. Because I didn't imagine me giving alcohol up, because it's just what we did. And I don't have a problem with alcohol because I'm around it. I still go out. It's not one of those things that, I'm fiending for it. And so to me, I have the mental willpower and the discipline that's not something that I want to consume in my life anymore, because of the effects that it had on me and the wasted potential that it was causing. And so I realized through the fundamentals of breaking that habit how powerful the mind was. So I started telling myself a new story. And then I've also met some other people, some other individuals that are also living in a different manner, that also leverage some of this structure, using this thing to our advantage and not letting this thing manipulate us. And so since I now have proof of concept, since I now understand that there is a demand for what I've experienced based on the YouTube, the Instagram shorts, the Facebook shorts, and all that other stuff, I study the analytics and I see what's going on. And I also talk to people. People talk back to me. And so I know that there is just a little small ounce of change that I've been able to make on a local level. And if I've been able to do that on a local level, and I've gotten a great response, and I've helped a lot of individuals, and they've gone out to better their lives, and they've also been able to help other individuals, then we're building a community of people that are being strong enough and being willing enough to step out of the masses and say, I'm just not doing that anymore, because that thing doesn't serve me anymore. And I'm not talking about alcohol. I'm talking about anything that no longer serves us. Anything that holds us back from ultimately living a more purposeful and aligned life. I'm going to be honest with you guys. You need to have a level of faith in something. I personally don't care what you believe in. It can be God. It can be the planet. It can be spirit. It can be whatever. I don't care what it is. I'm not going to sit here and pass judgment on anybody because I'm not at that point in my life just yet. And this is all fairly new to me, but I know what I've been able to do. And if we can help one person, just a small amount of people, live a more fulfilled life, then it's worth doing. Then these videos and everything that I've been posting on social media and every conversation that I've been having on a local level, it's been worth it. I needed this. I needed this a couple of years ago. If I would have had this person here putting this message out and I would have received it then. Now, I don't know if I would have been able to take it in because I was very stubborn and a knucklehead. But if the message would have been around me enough, it would have been the thing that I would have naturally gravitated to because it was the norm. Let's make beneficial things. Let's make having tough conversations. Let's make growth. Let's make deciding to stop a bad habit that no longer serves us. Let's make those things trendy. It's not sexy to get your life together. It's not sexy, it's not cool to say, hey, I'm deciding that I don't want to play around anymore, and I actually want to try to take advantage of my potential, and I want to live a more abundant life. It's very easy to just do what everybody else is doing. It's very easy to just stay comfortable. It's very easy to just fold because it's hard. Now, I'm not saying that this is for everybody, because the thing that I went on, and when the switch flipped, it came with a lot of responsibility. I didn't realize the trade-off. I don't hang out at the same places anymore. I'm very selective on who I hang out with, not by choice, but just because I no longer put myself in environments that no longer serve me. My phone and my house and I'm a revolving door for anybody that wants to come in and feed off this energy that I give out and feed off this positivity and this optimism that I've been working on. I no longer let my mind hold me back to an extent. I am now more aware of the same things that I'm doing that are hindering my growth, and I'm making a habit to change some of these things. And so over the next series of these videos, I'm going to break down some of the things that I have used to change the trajectory of my life. However the hell you say that word. Trajectory. There you go. Of my life. And so one of the most important things that I had to grasp was that I was simply acting out of my own experiences and the things that I considered normal. It wasn't until I got around other individuals that moved a different way, that lived a different way, and grew up a different way, that I was able to expose myself to doing life in a different manner. And then I started to kind of work that also backwards because of the whole process of what I was able to learn from the drinking habit and how I was telling myself that story. And since then, I've started to tell myself a new story. I started to speak life into myself. I started to think in a abundance mentality. I've started to have better results because of this. And so for me, the momentum and the snowball effect down this road is a lot more beneficial than the previous road that I was on. And so I'm going to continue to keep doing this and sharing these things because I think it is very important that if we are able to learn something and gain wisdom through experience and pain and suffering and mistakes, I think it is our human civil duty to give this information back to help other individuals, especially now more than ever, since there's a huge sense of hopelessness, a huge sense of individuals that feel stuck and lost, and they don't know or don't feel like they're capable of living any other way or obtaining anything else. I promise you, whatever you're going through, whatever stagnant thing that you're feeling, you are more than capable of changing that environment, your life, and that situation. I didn't think that I was able to have this level of happiness, this level of peace, and this level of success in my business, in my personal life, and in my friendships, and all areas around me until I challenged my thought process and how I did things. And I'll be honest with you, it's not easy, and it's not for everybody, because you have to deal with something that is very, very hard to deal with. And that's accountability, that's your ego and your pride. And I feel like most of the problems that I've had in my life were because of ego, pride, and not taking accountability for the things that I've done in my life. And so since then, we've worked really, really hard to take accountability for the things that we have done and not act in a ego or prideful way. And I'll be honest with you guys, a lot of that has to do with a little bit of faith, a little bit of the books that I've been reading, and a little bit of understanding myself and how I operate. And so if you guys want to check out more of this stuff, if you want to learn a little bit more about some of the things that I have done, subscribe. I'm going to dive into this and share with y'all a lot of life-changing things that have happened for me. And one of the first things that I'll leave you guys with is that if you don't believe that life can get better for you, if you don't believe that you're capable of making a change, of breaking a habit, or accomplishing whatever it is that you want to accomplish in life, if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't believe in the single little goal or act or whatever it is that is even capable, none of this works. I didn't think that I can give up my alcohol habit. I didn't think that I could outgrow that, because this is how I was. This is my bloodline. This is what we do. I've always done this. And it wasn't until I started challenging some of those things that I realized that that's just a story I was telling myself. And so I want to leave you guys with this. Tell yourself a new story. If you keep telling yourself that you're not capable, you're not deserving, you're not worthy of these things, then your mind is not even going to make an attempt to either try, obtain, acquire, or whatever it may be. Because in your mind, you've already decided that that isn't even a possibility. All I've done, I'm the same person. I have different habits now that align with what I'm trying to pursue. But the most important thing that I've done is I now believe that I am capable. I believe that I am worthy. I believe that that my life can look how I want it to. Now, granted, that's the other battle, because for I want things to work out my way, and I'll be honest with you, my faith system tells me that my life is kind of already laid out for me. And the way that I process my particular faith system is that I simply just need to learn to be a lot more vulnerable, and I need to learn to be patient and get out of my way. Because most of the time, my problems are with my own doings. And so this is why we're doing the work on ourselves. This is why we're digging inward. And this is why we're having some of the best results that we have seen year to date at the age of a tender age of my mid-30s. And so now I finally feel like I'm living. Now I finally feel like I'm doing something that is ultimately super satisfying and fulfilling for what I do. And I'll be honest with you, I'm attracting a lot more positive things. Beautiful women, better opportunities, making better friends, stronger relationships. Now there comes temptation with all these things, and so that's another battle. But I'm on a good road. And I feel like more people need to dig inward and take accountability for the things that we can do instead of pointing the blame on everything else. But it starts with this. You have to believe that you're capable of that. And so I don't know where the next episode's gonna end. This is the intro. You guys just stick around. We're gonna get pretty aggressive with this because this is something that I am very passionate about, helping people get to this level, and just know that it's okay. We all go through life, and a lot of times our problems are right here. Peace.